Let's get it rolling.
Let's get it rolling. It's Thursday. It's warm, but it's cloudy. We hope there's sunshine in your life. This is March 11th, 2021. Welcome aboard Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is most definitely episode 459.
All right.
We debate.
I believe you.
Yeah, I know. You should, because this is your answer, and you're the guy who knows it all, and I don't. We appreciate you tuning in.
My memory's going.
Yeah, but you're that friend who doesn't remember anything really until I'm like, yeah, it's definitely this, and you're like, it's not. I'm like, what's your memory's shot? Like, what do you mean? You're like,
I like being backed in a corner.
Listen,
on anything.
you procrastinate with your memory too. We appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time listening, hey, welcome aboard. We are a triathlon-related podcast, but we cover it all. We cover triathlon, we cover life, we cover everything in between. Now we'll go in, sometimes go into in-depth training methods on swim, bike, run. We'll do race recaps, race previews, which we'll do a little bit of today because races are back, races are happening. Another one this weekend down in Miami, Challenge Miami. We'll talk a little bit about that today, but for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes ourselves, and best friends, just kind of sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what's going on in our life, sometimes what's going on in our athletes' lives. We'll also hop into our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group, if you want to be a part of that. There really is a lot of awesome people in there with a variety of different levels, from beginners to experienced ex-pros to Ironman champions to people in the middle of the pack. Just a lot of people in there that are always willing to kind of give you their feedback. Or don't be afraid to ask any question. There's no stupid questions, but it's a really awesome community to be a part of. So you can hop in there. But that's it. We have no sponsors. We have no ads. We do get free coffee from our listeners. That we're finishing our last bag of was it Angry Squid from Dennis Myers?
Angry Squid from
Dennis Myers.
Pale
Horse.
It was kind of a lame review, but I mean, we're not going to go too deep in reviews, but we appreciate the coffee. It's a
really good cup of
solid
coffee.
I'm going to say solid.
And you know me, I'm strict when it comes to coffee.
Yeah, Angry Squid, man.
It's solid. It is a very good cup of coffee. It's not too strong. It's just about right. I would say it's bold.
Oh, it's very bold.
It's bold. It's
very bold.
No, we're not going to give it too much views, but here we go. No, but it is good, and we appreciate.
Go get it, man.
That's right. Go get it. It really is.
Chesapeake, Virginia, I believe.
Chesapeake, Virginia. There we go.
Man, my memory is tight today.
I was going to say, making me question things.
Think about this, dude. Yeah, 459, the podcast. I just want to go on this for a second because I just recently picked up a new athlete who he said he's been listening to the old podcast, but every once in a while he'll pop to the new one. He's kind of a new podcast listener and whatever, but he said, man, you guys have
and he listened to the first ones and he's still
he's listened to the old ones and the new ones.
He's a glutton.
And he said, boy, you guys have really turned up your game. And I was like, thanks, that means a lot. I don't know if that means
it means we sucked. It means we sucked and now we're mediocre. People love mediocre.
One of our big things is consistency with training, right? Everybody's like, how do I get to, I just do the workouts and stick with it and don't, miss a lot. And that's really a pretty simple formula if you think about it. Just trust the plan. So, but I'm seriously, and then someone sent me a meme this morning that said, everybody's got a podcast now or whatever, it's kind of a joking thing, which is true, but we've been doing it for 5 years. And think about it. We've never missed a week. 2 a week for almost 5 years. And I got to say,
you're feeling yourself today a little bit.
Well,
your memory is on
about
point.
This. It's like we didn't get sick. We didn't call off. This is including vacations and Christmas.
Don't jinx us about.
Well, I don't even. My point is, we deserve a week.
We show up. Yeah, we show up. That's right.
We take one. So what?
We do. It's true. And I will say, we both had our moments where we've been like, let's just do one this week, or let's just be like, nah, let's just do it. And then we've stuck to it. It's about 5 years of doing it twice a week. We've done them from, we started off, I was in Kansas City, you were in Nashville. We've done them from Nashville to Nashville. We've done it from Nashville to Wisconsin. We've done it from Wisconsin to Chattanooga. We've done them from on vacations. We've done them from everywhere. I think I recorded one in the stairwell at Disney. One time, I'm sure that wasn't the greatest.
We road trip to Texas.
We road trip to Texas in the car and the laptop. We found a way. And our podcast is not, the most well produced and the most crystal clear, in terms of
pretty clear now,
it's pretty clear
it's
now.
Getting better. I got to get better on the sound.
But
whatever.
Yeah, and they're not all great and they're not all terrible. For the most part, they're kind of in between. Yeah, we show up and we hopefully, we can talk for 45, 50, 60 minutes and hopefully you can take something from it. You know, we always say this, we're not professionals. We're not experts. We don't push your products. That's a big reason why we've kind of always been hesitant to get to do sponsors and ads, just because we just generally just kind of talk from, our hearts and what's going on, with us personally and with our athletes, and try to, share things in terms of, what, you could hopefully take from it. We're not professionals. We're just experienced, and that goes with things in life. We've both been through, our fair share of obstacles in life, and we're still trying to find our way with training, which I think resonates with a lot of athletes in terms of, we're still trying to find our way, which I think is most endurance athletes, trying to find your way in life, trying to find your way with training. It is a never-ending journey, just like life, because there's really, like I was talking to an athlete last night, and I was like, that's it. Like that is like, and I know I mentioned this before, but that's why coaching is such an interesting occupation, is that and this goes for every kind of coach, whether you're, a peewee or you're a professional, coach in the majors or NBA. It's like, you work all year for the, even for pros, like the best coaches, like they work all year long to do one thing. And then as soon as it's over, they probably take like 24, 48 hours off, and then they're just back to work. Like they've been looking for like what's next year, or, scouting or looking at tape. And it's like, that's also what triathlon coaching is. Like you work with athletes, and they work, especially like the last, year or two. There's a lot of athletes I've worked with that haven't raced at all, for like 12, 18 months, and they're about to, saddle up hopefully, and we're going to do this. But as soon as they cross the finish line, it's like, woohoo, this is awesome. And then legit, like within 24 hours, they're like, okay, so now that we've done this, let's move on to this, or I want to get faster, I want to go longer, I want to do this different. It's a never ending process, just like, triathlon and life. So, and this podcast, we've done them from headset mics and laptops with, earphones, and we've done them in my truck, and now we're in an office with, good mics. So it's just trying to find our way, and hopefully, at some point you found your way to this podcast. Hopefully today, as we kind of get rolling into it, you can take something, consume it and make it your own.
Yeah. You got something they can consume, man?
Well, first off, I want to say this, and you and I have gone, we covered it a little bit, not as extensively as I think a lot of the bigger triathlon related podcasts go, but the Challenge Miami starts tomorrow. The pros go off tomorrow. Challenge Daytona got a lot of hoopla around it, and well-deserved, because I think you and I were both blown away at the coverage that they had. That was
we gave them a whole podcast.
Yeah, it was free. It was really kind of mind-blowing. Like, you go on, like,
I thought you meant our podcast was free. Yeah.
No, our podcast is free, but it was the coverage was mind blowing. It really was incredibly impressive.
No, it was.
I was blown away that it was for free, and the way they did it was I was really, really impressed. And you thought, all right, well, did they have something here with this speedway thing? And obviously I think, they found a way to make it work on Daytona at the end of the year when there weren't any Ironman races going on, and Challenge's, huge biggest competitor is Ironman, obviously, and they're putting a race now this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Miami. And I'm going to say, I've always kind of gotten behind the race. I love Saturday races. That's my thing. Like, I love all races I think should be on Saturday. You know why? Because you stay the night. And then the next day, it's a weekend day. You can just relax, hang out. You don't have to feel like you have to rush back and go to work, which is a huge pet peeve of yours, I know. Oh. You don't want to be Corey Coggins hopping in your car, hightailing it back to North Carolina in like 2 seconds after the race. He's not even like, the chamois cream is still, in his shorts, and he's like, I'm in the car, I'm like 2 hours out. And, as I know, it's one of your frustrating things.
I'm packing up my bags, and he's like, nice race, man. He's wheeling his bike.
He's wheeling it out. And he's like, bye.
What are you doing? He goes, yeah, I got to hit the road.
I got to hit the road. Yep, in his cycling shoes.
Let's go sit in the
water.
We
love you, Corey. We miss you. But no, so they're doing a race tomorrow. So the pros go off tomorrow at, I think, around 1 o'clock, which is, again, right in your wheelhouse in terms of not getting up early. But they're doing pros tomorrow.
This podcast is sponsored by Challenge.
It is, yeah, it's Challenge. But I think we give credit where credit's due, and I think they deserve credit. And then because what they're doing, we mentioned this in our post Challenge Daytona podcast, is they're going to. It's like, what would be cool if they would video stream the age groupers. And they are going to, you have to pay. It's like $1.99 or $2, like it's whatever. Like, and please don't, if you're like, oh, last one was free, but this is like, think of all the things you spend more than like $1 or $2. Like, give these people some credit for trying to put something on and grow the sport, because the more people that are exposed to the sport, the better the sport is, the more opportunities we're all going to have. So age groupers, I think, are Saturday. I want to say age groupers and or kids. A kids race is on Sunday that's also televised. How freaking cool is that? But what I wanted to touch on for a minute was just the field that is tomorrow. You're not going to see, if you followed Challenge Daytona, it was like the end of the year hoopla, because it had the PTO put a lot of the pro triathlete organization put a whole lot of money into it, and everybody showed up. You had a ton of like ITU level racers that showed up. It was a very blended participant field from Olympic level stars all the way up to Ironman champions and kind of everyone in between. This one, however, is more kind of geared towards I would say heavy-handed on the 70.3 full distance athletes. But the field at the top end is loaded. We'll have to give a shout out to one of our only pro triathlete guest ever, Starkey. He's lining up. Ben Knut's lining up. Jan Frodeno, Lionel Sanders, Ben Hoffman, Rudy Von Berg, Matt Hansen, who I think ran his way to third with that just insane run at Challenge Daytona. It was second or third. Tim O'Donnell, Chris Lieferman. I mean, it is a who's who list. I mean, there's a couple that are missing here that I think would make it more stacked. But for an early season race, it's loaded. Yeah. And I would say, like, these are long course specialists. So I would say, again, like, if you didn't watch Challenge Daytona, these are great learning opportunities, not just from watching the athletes participate and the best athletes on the planet perform. If they're going to do commentating, you can learn a lot. We did this yesterday. We do these weekly Zooms with our athletes, and yesterday we did one that was all about the bike, just like the bike itself, like parts and how things move and where things go, and race setups and wheels and tires and power meters. And like, I think we'd all be surprised at like how, and again, that's why triathlon is so confusing, is when you hop into the sport, there is so much going on. Like, they would say like the core sport should be nutrition involved in triathlon, but it's really just gear. People buying things, and then they don't really even know how they work or what goes there or what they're called. And like, there's a huge learning curve in the sport, which I think is a bad thing, just because I think it raises the barrier to entry for people and makes it intimidating. But don't get me wrong, it doesn't stop people that have never done triathlon ever from dropping $15,000 on a bike. So there really isn't that much barrier to entry for a lot. But in terms of having a conversation, not feeling intimidated like an idiot when you walk into your bike shop asking them to fix something, and you're like, just that little doohickey on the back that moves the chain up and down the it's called a derailleur. The things you should know. But the commentating was good last time, so I think hopefully be good this time. But Jan Frodeno wasn't there, and if you follow any kind of pro triathletes at all, I think it's going to be a pretty good head-to-head battle. I know there's a ton of Lionel Sanders fans out there. But my prediction is Jan Frodeno is not coming all the way from across the pond to just kind of participate. My prediction, he's going to put on a clinic. And I would say he's probably going to dust everybody from the start.
You think so? Now, did I miss this? Is it on a track?
Just like in Kona. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to do. They might do the whole thing on the track. I think the biggest thing with is he's front of the pack everything. He is, I think, the most well-rounded. He can swim front pack. He can bike front pack. He proved that in Kona. The last year they had it, and he is the best runner off the bike. That's up in that end of the field. But a lot of these guys are up there. Hansen, I think, will do well. It's a pretty loaded field. And going down to the women, you've obviously got another loaded field. If you want to picture or you dream about changing your run form or how you should run, then make sure you watch the women's race and make sure you watch Anne Haug, because she runs the most effortless. She was the one who was, I think, in second or third. She won Kona. She won Kona last year. Her and Jan Frodeno are actually coached by the same coach. But she was the one who served the 5-minute penalty or whatever penalty it was in the box before she started, and then went on an absolute tear and ended up, I think she was about 2 minutes behind Paula Finley. She's racing. Lucy Charles Barkley's racing, which she'll be one of the first out of the water. Paula's back again. Heather Jackson. I mean, there is a loaded Meredith Kessler. There is a loaded field. Jodie Simpson, who has always been kind of an ITU level racer, is moving up in this distance as well. But it is all. I would say the top 6 are about as good as you're going to see, and a lot of Americans too, which is always fun to watch. But it should be a Sarah Crowley. It should be the same as the men's. This should be a very competitive race. watch it, learn something and get excited. Like, and the fact they're having the age group races, like this is exciting for so many reasons, just not because it's a pro race and it's televised and it'll be a lot more fun to watch than in my experience watching any of the Ironman, like Facebook live races outside of Kona. You're kind of like, okay. And I get it. And we all get it. Triathlon is not the most spectator friendly sport, right? It's like you go up that's why finding courses that are spectator friendly are so sought after, because most of them aren't. Most of them just kind of suck in terms of like, that's why Madison is always going to be one of the most popular courses, because it is so spectator friendly. There are very few points where you're not seeing. That's why I thought Louisville was great. There was a lot of opportunities to see people. There are some bike courses where you're just not going to see anyone ever. Same for the run courses. You get out of town. So it's a great opportunity to watch, but it feels like we're back. It feels like, things are, the momentum is starting to go. It's not a one-off. We had the Clearmont with draft legal racing was last weekend. Other races are, it's exciting, and I think everyone's kind of, the timing of it is great with, I think more sunshine and more daylight and warmer temps and people are getting out. I think I feel the level, I think for the first time in a while, I think I felt this level of optimism in terms of like, this isn't just like, me being a half glass, yeah,
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm not being overly optimistic because that's usually what I am, but half glass full, whatever. It feels that way. And it's so exciting to see. And I can't wait as a coach to see athletes finally be able to get out there. Like we had an athlete racing the Woodlands half marathon last week, and she had gone through like 2 weeks of like hellacious work. And before the racing started, she texted me, she's like, I'm getting kind of emotional. She was like, seeing all these people out for the first time, like in a long time, racing and doing things. She was like, it's just so wonderful, to see. And so I think that's obviously like way off the radar in terms of what I was trying to go with Challenge Miami, but it's exciting. I'm excited to watch it. I'll be glued to it the entire time. I get into it. And again, no matter even if you don't know any of these pro athletes' names, you don't follow them, and you feel like, what am I going to learn from people who are incredibly fast, so much faster than me? Or it's kind of mind blowing, but I think it's impressive and intriguing because it's also, we get to watch what the human body is capable of, in terms of the speed, in terms of the efficiency. And I think it's great. It's fun to watch the swim, especially if the coverage is going to be like it was, and watching people ride their bikes and the different setups. It takes all kinds, and you can be all speeds. And that's what I love about this sport.
Yeah, I mean, watching pro, it's all relative, because as we watched Challenge last time, and when you watch Kona, they're going a lot faster than most of us, but
all of us,
yeah. Right. So, but you can tell because they're always saying, yeah, it looks like they're going a little too hard on the bike or whatever, or are they trying to set something up here, whatever. It's the same type of deal. I think the thing with Challenge is really interesting too, because, I mean, they're going on a Friday for one, and that's pretty interesting. But I think what they've done really well is, we talk about what happened during the pandemic and who's doing what and who's playing it smart or whatever. I think they've played it really smart with this, with Challenge Daytona. A lot of people were hungry and wanted to see some stuff, and they did it really, really well. And now they're doing this, and they're doing it on a Friday. And I'm like, why? But more people are at home, so they're probably thinking, yeah, they'll just turn it on, and who knows what their reasoning is, but it seems like it could be that. And then suddenly you have the bookend of Kona, in a way, developing. I mean, because, everybody looks forward to Kona at the end of the year, and it sort of like signifies the end of the season. Well, this maybe could be the beginning of the signifying of the seasons. And it could be a huge windfall for them in a lot of ways if they keep, like we had talked about with Rev, and maybe this is their opportunity to start dipping into that 70.3 market and making it happen. Now, whether that has to be at tracks all the time or none of that, I don't know. But maybe it puts them on the map a lot higher.
Unique locations is really, I think, that's why I thought Knoxville was so great. It was a unique location.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And again, like Challenge is huge over in Europe. Like they're the deal. Like, they've got Challenge Roth, which is, I think probably one of the best races on the planet. And they do things well. The owners are very customer service oriented. Like they do a really, really awesome job. They just don't. It's the only problem is that they're named Challenge, not Ironman, which is what people associate the distance with the company. So like when you see that, you do that, right? But I think it's an intriguing play for them to recapture a part of the market. It's really going to depend on how they do at the age group level, because the age groupers pay and make them profit. The pros don't, right? Unless they're going to make money off off advertisements and sponsors and whatever from the pros, they're the ones that are paying, right? They're paying money out, so they have to hope, or at least plan on, having enough age group presence to where they're going to start forking over. I know they got like their own age group championship, but at some point, if Ironman continues to not pay pros at the same rate that the PTO have, which is again the Professional Triathlete Organization, is that Kona is important. Because listen, like a lot of these professional triathletes, you wonder like, how do they make money, right? Well, 90% of the people listening to this podcast probably make more than pro triathletes, right? Because they just don't make that much money. It's very sponsored. They get paid more from their sponsors and incentives, or showing up to Kona. Basically, they ride things to sell to age groupers, which make the money. And very few of them make high dollar. Like you go to Kona and you think about how insanely expensive it is to go to Hawaii, and you got to be there for most pros go there for like 2 weeks. They want to train there for 2 weeks. They want to get ready. They want to experience, the island. They want to, ride the course. They want to get their body acclimated to the heat. That's an expensive trip, right? Just the flight and the stay. And then if they don't crack the money, they're in the red, right? They're losing money unless they have in their sponsor contract or agreement like that they pay for them to go, and they cover all their expenses. And so a lot of pros that are on the fringe are going to think, well, let's be realistic. In the last 20 years, there's only been, I think 13 or 14 men, like, because we've had a bunch of, repeat winners, Ironman, Kona champions. And then you've probably had 500, 600, 700 different male pros participate. And then you're going to be like, if I'm on the fringe and I don't think I'm going to be that close, maybe I am going to save my big match for one of these other challenge races, whether it's Challenge Daytona or Challenge Miami, and think I'm going to go down here. And if you're especially if they're in the U.S., I can stay domestically. I don't have to travel. I can extensively to Hawaii. I don't have to pay as much money. And I could have a chance at a good payout with maybe a less field. I think it's wonderful. I hope Challenge continues to do what they're doing, continues to grow. I thought they had a great opportunity when Rev was around. I think they just dropped the ball in a lot of areas. But I hope they grow. I hope they have more races in the U.S. because I think competition is great, right? Because you always want competition, especially in business, because it makes you raise your game. And I think seeing more pros and having more exposure, again, it's all good for the sport. The more people that can watch it, the more people are going to get into it and think, oh, I can do that, right? Like, more people sign up for Ironman that go and watch races or watch the NBC Kona World Championship broadcast on NBC. Like, that's what gets people into the sport, right? It's not just professional athletes. Like, I want to be like Michael Jordan. That's not like, no one grows up like, I want to be like John Freeman. That doesn't happen, right? In triathlon, it's more about exposure, and endurance sports needs that, because most endurance sports aren't that fun to watch. That's why you see the younger kids now are more going towards the Olympic level racing, because it's shorter. It's super spectator friendly, because you can, like, sometimes for a 20-mile bike, they're doing 6 laps. They're in a downtown city, right? Like Berlin, or, in Sydney, Australia, where everything is lined like the finish line of the Tour de France. The swim is super, spectator friendly. You can watch things and you can make a lot of money by doing it. And so I hope that this continues to grow. I think who knows, maybe Indianapolis, Motor Speedway, maybe we'll see one in Indy. But I think they're finding unique locations because athletes like things that are unique, that are special. And from everyone we had people race Challenge Daytona. We don't have any racing Challenge Miami, but they thought the experience was outstanding, and so hopefully they can continue to do this and raise the bar and give us all more opportunities to get out and race. Yeah, no, I think it is important to do the unique stuff, and we've talked about it many times. We always talk about this because that's what we do. We just sort of talk about triathlon all day. And the thought of, like my thing, if you could have something like that where you have maybe more loops or something and more friendly, spectator-friendly events, and, not
if they tried not to be Ironman, but be somebody different in the same distance, you know, but I always say 70.3 because I think that's where I don't think they can. It'd be really difficult to crack the full distance Ironman, you know, brand, but the 70.3 thing seems attainable. And, you know, little things like for me, you know, we have the trackers. We always thought that, and I think everybody's starting to up their game on the trackers. For me, it was a big thing to, you know, have more points of tracking and just have more of a, you know, like what they're doing with the cameras and broadcasting and stuff like that. Maybe they could tie the trackers into video footage. Like if you're watching at home or something on the computer, you know, you can see somebody's coming and then the next thing you can actually see them run through or whatever. Or maybe there's a lounge at the, you know, transition where people can have TVs up and you could actually,
lounges.
Yeah, you can just lounge around and watch the monitors and say, hey, there they go. They look pretty good or whatever, you know, little things like that could be fun to create. And I think if, you know, if more loops or something means less people, then, you know, maybe it's a little more exclusive, you know, maybe it's 1,000 people versus 2,500 or something, and just make it happen. And I think in time, you know, like, you know, I can see it already because more and more people are talking about, hey, I did challenge, you know, and it's just this thing that gets in your head, right? Like if, you know, all of a sudden, oh, challenge has a different sort of metal thing or whatever. It's sort of like the belt buckle thing or whatever.
It's unique.
Yeah. So don't try to make it Ironman. Go just do your own thing like they have been. And I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's perfect timing because everyone has been, you know, and again, like I think every business and company in the last year and a half that does events has had its challenges, right? Literally, because you know, you're looking at refunds and customer service and how to manage things while also trying to stay in business to provide these things for the next year. I think most companies have done a good job. I think a lot of people have been, you know, kind of, you know, critical and negative about how Ironman's response has been with how late they've been to responding to deferrals or how long it's taken them to cancel races or doing all these things. You know, and I just think that, you know, it's a good time to be able to start doing things that are unique as people are starting to, I don't think they're starting to fall out of love with Ironman. People are, you know, never going to do that. And some people are, but options are great. And doing things that are unique. And like you said, like even if it's something different, like racing a few loops, even if it's 1 or 2 loops, right, at a speedway, people like that stuff. Like it's neat, it's unique, you know? And I think that the more companies that can do unique things like that, people like that. Listen, we all like to feel special.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
I agree.
We all like to feel special.
Just to get on, because this is one thing I just remembered, is that when we talk about it, I think that a lot of times I get the sense that Ironman is looking for the easiest way to do the race course. So, like, my point is, like, if Challenge would kind of go out of the way, you know, might be a little more expensive because you got to block some more stuff off or whatever the case may be, but it's kind of a cooler course rather than we go out and back on a greenway. You know, that's the whole, you know, loop. And, well, it's great because we don't have to have, you know, block off intersections and everything like that, but it's just boring, you know, or, you know what I mean? It's just sort of this, like, let's make it a simple course. And I get where that is. I mean, it makes sense from a organization standpoint, but I just think, like you're saying, maybe like create like cool courses, you know, that like I've said this for years about Chattanooga. They don't even use downtown, like at all. What's that all about? You can't make 1 or 2 blocks of downtown part of the run course somehow?
Listen,
let's run down a road and through a Burger King parking lot.
You know, and listen, like I'm sure it's a lot easier to be critical of race event organizers. When Mike and I are sitting in our you know, lounge and recliners, but I think, you know, I know there's a lot to work through with cities and doing things, and I also find it fascinating with who and how triathlons choose to race and where they choose to sign up. There aren't a lot of in-betweeners. It's more, I want to race the hardest courses or give me the easiest course possible, right? Give me the one that's the most, you know, I want to where's the easiest swim? No one's ever like, find me the hardest swim course, you know, like, or, you know, that's what they did with Chattanooga. You saw, and I read Ironman Chattanooga the first time they talked about it, I was like, oh dude, that's going to be brutal. Yeah. It's going to be, and now that we live here, I'm like, dude, how can you not use the unbelievable, like, terrain that they have here to make which is what they did for Ironman 70.3 World Championships when they changed the bike course to make it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think the run course is fair. It could still be a little bit harder. I think the full course is plenty hard. But there's opportunity to do that. And I think people, at least I don't think, I hope, I guess, there is a trend. And I get from a loop standpoint, you can't necessarily do that many loops, because the more loops you do, then you think about how many people am I going to jam pack in a loop, right? When you have, because that's the thing. So you look at Atlantic City 70.3, one of the biggest criticisms of that race, and I think Steve DeMonte does that race, who's been on our podcast twice, he's an awesome race director, is that it's so incredibly crowded when you do 3 loops like that, because you have 2,500, 3,000 people. It's just crowded. And so I think there's a happy medium between course safety and overcrowding, because you don't want to be overcrowding, because then you get athletes complaining because it's too crowded. And it's well, that's too far out of town. We're always going to have something to complain about. But I think more spectator opportunities are great, because I also think it helps the city, right? Because think about how many times, that most people have this conversation. Hey, do you want to come with me this race? Nah, I can't really see you anyway. Just go by yourself. So you're looking at one person coming into a city to spend money versus a family versus their parents. Sometimes you bring Madison, everyone brings people, because it's they bring an entourage to no one walks up to, to transition or race morning alone. Most people have a TMZ worthy entourage of this is my stepmom, my stepdad, these are my parents, these are my kids, these are my cousins, my aunt and uncle. Everybody's here. And if everybody's here spending money, and so, because it's an outstanding spectator friendly course. So people come. If there's not a spectator friendly course, most triathletes are just don't come. You're not going to see me. It's going to be more stress. You're going to have to watch the kids or whatever. It's so I think there has to be, I'm sure that's a conversation that, well, hopefully it is a conversation that, race event organizers and companies like Ironman, because they are about, like you said, Ironman isn't a distance. It's a company. The company is called Ironman. It's also a distance because they've trademarked it, but they're a business just like anybody else. They care about one thing, which is their bottom line. So they want to make things as easy as, they want the biggest return on their investment, right? They want everything to make them money. And sometimes I'm sure they're well, that's going to be too expensive to do that this way. Or if we make it too hard, it won't sell out quickly, right? Because they think about how many races, how many triathletes you have, how many races they're going to do. I'm sure they have algorithms and ways they look at all these things. But I think people are going to, because the more and more opportunities we have to do endurance events, whether it's ultras or long swims or long rides, people, we love it. We all want to feel special, right? We all want to feel unique. We all think we're special and unique already, but it's but I did this one. I did people, it's the Tahoe, Ironman Tahoe. People are I did Tahoe, it's 7-8 years ago, and I lost a bike, my bike shoe cover. There's a lot of people or the one year they had Ironman New York, right? They had a downtown New York. I know. And an athlete do it who took a cab to transition that morning, right? And that didn't last very long. We like things that are unique, like Norseman. That's why that race is so incredibly popular. Challenge Roth, incredibly popular, because it's like racing in the Tour de France, as an age group, because there's so many people. The whole city gets behind it. Mm-hmm. So I think the more unique opportunities we can find, let me rephrase, the more unique opportunities that are presented from race event organizers to start thinking, I think, and hopefully that's what's kind of, and we've had to do this as coaches and as a brand, I guess. It's what are ways in the last year we can serve our athletes better and continue to keep them excited and continue to keep them engaged and continue to keep them motivated, and what's going to get them ready to roll, because there haven't been. You've had to kind of think out of the box, and I think hopefully that's what's happened for race directors and event organizers and event management companies. It's all right, well, we kind of saw where our limitations were this last year, and now we kind of figured out a way to have, because the people who have been rewarded in the last year aren't the ones who have just been okay, I'm just going to sit here and twiddle my thumbs until I get the green light for them to go. The people who have been successful and the ones who athletes have been God, I appreciate that. Like, they no matter what your views are, it's like there's a smaller event company in Knoxville, Tennessee that we have a lot of athletes there that said there was and I can't remember the name of it. Shame on me, but to give them a plug, but they put on a lot of smaller races this last year that people thought it was perfectly done. We had plenty of space in transition. We had to wear a face mask like we should, and then. But they were like, I just appreciated the effort they took to put it on. And what you gain from that was a lifelong athlete that's always going to look at your races. So I hope that athletes have gone and looked at, hey, I want to do this. I want to be able to do these unique events, like the Music City Triathlon. I thought one of the greatest things about it was because it was in freaking downtown Nashville, right? You ran, you used to, I don't think you do anymore. No, you ran on Broadway, right? You ran like the streets of downtown. Now I think you run like out towards Shelby or something.
Yeah,
but you swam in the Cumberland River. You biked, on your own Ellington Parkway, dude. It was like totally closed off, and then you ran downtown. On 4th Street, Broadway, like up down, it was an insanely brutal course for an Olympic, but it was, and then it's like, oh, well, now we're going to move it out. Well, now we're going to move it out. And it's like, now you're running like the vacant streets of, down at Shelby. I'm like, wow, this is really fun. Like the scrap yards, like this totally different experience. But stuff like that is what's memorable. It's what makes you stick around. Like, I want to go back and do that. Or it was hard and it was challenging. So you look back and you think, I want to challenge my two different experiences, right? You have an environmental or location-based experience, or you have one that's like, man, that was tough. Like Savage Man, which is up in New England area. That is a famous race up there, not because it's easy, because it's hard. Yeah. And so I think that the more and more races that can provide opportunities to both be difficult in nature, but also have athletes gravitate to sign up for it, right? Because you don't want to, that's the Ironman thing. It's like, I don't want to make it too hard, right? They put every race, I think, if they could, with the swim downstream to make it more appeasing to athletes.
They'd cancel every
right.
swim.
So I'm like, dude, give me the roughest swim possible. Make it hard. That's what we're supposed to. And I get it from a business standpoint. It's like, well, no, we want people to sign up to race. People are most afraid to swim. We can't have hard swims. And then you look at insurance and how much, so I get all that, but like there is a section of the triathlete population that's like, dude, give me hard, give me challenging, give me an experience that's going to really challenge me, which I also think should appease itself and become attractive to middle of the pack age groupers or people getting the sport, because you can look at the event and think, this isn't a fast course. It's just a do it course. Like, I'm going to be proud that I did it. Not, hey, I PR'd this course. It should be I did it course.
Yeah. And then you have the whole thing is like, you're going to make an Ironman easy. I mean, like what even is that? That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? I get that on the surface, it can be like, oh, it's a flatter course. It'll be easy. It's not easy, and like I've always been a fan of hills and tough terrain and stuff like that too. So, I mean, to me, it's just about the conquer, and to me, that is easier sometimes, just to have like variety, like that. I guess that's the thing, right? Like I've been scared to death of doing Florida because it's like a aero bar central for like,
the whole time.
And so to me, that's harder. So like, I don't understand why we decide that, and plus it's an ocean swim, and that's got me a little weirded out sometimes. So, I mean, and it always goes back to Wisconsin for me, why they took out the mass start. And that was, I don't think they've sold out since they took that away. So like, you tell me, like, what do people want? I think people do want challenges. I don't, I think it's one thing to try, like we talked about, I think this before, is like maybe grade the courses or something like that, where you're like, hey, your first time Ironman, this would be a great one for you to do. And then, if you're looking for a big time challenge, then, they're kind of out there as it is. If they were just sort of like brand them with difficulty stars, and I know they kind of like describe the run as hard and medium or whatever and do that sort of thing. But like, if you just sort of branded certain courses as certain level of difficulty or whatever, like, ski slopes or something like that, is like, I think people would like that, It's like, oh, and unfortunately it would be like, oh, you're doing that. That's branded as an easy Ironman or whatever, so there's that kind of thing too. But I don't know. I do think you're right. I think that we're all looking for experiences, and I think we're all looking for sort of that customer service from races, and not just kind of roll out the red carpet and say, go to it. It's sort of like, we want more Cameron indoor arenas than, some big box arena where nobody cares.
What's the most memorable experience you've ever had at a race that just sticks out? Like I remember this, and it was like the best feeling ever at a race.
I think it's that picture that I have out here. The one that I took from Rev 3. Yeah. That cold day, the rainy cold day.
2012?
Yeah, something like that. When you came up
We've been doing this for a while.
Yeah. It was pouring rain, it was freezing, and then the finish line was in that park. It was that really nice grass, that short, and it was flooded out and coming down that thing, and people were out there, and it was just like that. That to me was like the experience that came to mind when you said that. It was just this sort of like gritty, like it was so hard that day. And
they wouldn't even have that race back when we used to race. That's a pull made. They would totally cancel that right now.
Oh, 100%.
If it rained, because it did. I remember exactly and I don't remember much from back in those days, but I remember this, is I had an umbrella. I had my thickest North Face, this black jacket, my winter jacket on, sweatpants. I was wearing shoes that day, and I was freezing.
Yeah.
And I remember Ann Malin was like, I don't think I can get in. You got to touch this water. And I was like, it can't be that cold. I remember I walked down to like the dock, and I got on my knees, I put my hand, and I was like, yeah, it's that cold. It's that cold.
Low 50s, man.
It was so cold that day. It's like things like that we remember the most, right? Like, and I think sometimes we forget that, and that goes, and I'll share mine in a minute, but like that goes back to like memorable moments in training. It's never like, well, there was this day back in 2018 where I woke up, and I walked into my pain cave, and it was perfectly 78 degrees. The fan was already on my bike, and I uploaded my trainer road workout, and it worked perfectly. And I'll never forget that day. It meant a lot to me. No one ever has those, right? But I'll always remember vividly that ride that we did 120 miles in the Trace. We went out, we did one loop at 60 miles. We came back, we refueled in the Trace parking lot. It was 5 or 6 of us guys. I think that was the day where you were supposed to ride 60, and I was like, hey, Mike, come on, tag along, and then you end up doing like, what was it, 112 or 120, and then we headed back out, and we got, if you haven't been on the Natchez Trace before, it's a straight shot, like if you wanted to make it a straight shot, and we used to go, 30 miles out, and then at that point, you're not any closer, you got to come 30 miles all the way back. We made the turnaround, we looked up in the sky, it was like cloudy, and it was like, oh, we're in trouble here. And it just started storming, and it was pouring down rain.
Lightning everywhere,
and we just pace-lined it in the pouring rain the whole way back. And I will never forget it. And then we went and we had burgers and beers and whatever afterwards, and it was like, I'll never forget that. But it was an experience. I have no idea what the elevation was that day, how many, what my miles per hour were, or my watts were. I just remember we went a long way, and it was memorable. Like for me, from an experience standpoint, on coming in at the end of my first loop at Wisconsin, 2016, I think, when you and I did it last. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what street it was, but I remember running up. It was a slight incline. It was so packed with people that I thought...
That was State Street.
Yeah, I think it had to be. Because when I say packed, I'm talking... State Street's got what? It's all bars, restaurants, something like that. It's a college town. It was a beautiful day when we raced.
Yeah.
It was jam-packed from the curb to the front edge of the storefronts. It was lined. I've never seen so many people, and I was like, they were just going berserk. And I remember I got chills when I was running because I felt so energized and so pumped up. And I was like, this is incredible. I didn't know how I felt. I didn't really care, but it was like, you kind of felt like every person was cheering you on that you saw. Like you tried to make eye contact because you're like, I don't know these people. But like you look around the crowd and there's people are staring at you like, go. And they're looking at your bib. You know, like one of the funniest things when they first started putting your names on bib, like, who the hell? Like, what do you mean? You don't know me. Like, put your names on the bib. Yeah. Like, go, Robbie, go. And you're like, who the hell are you? I don't know who you are. But it was that kind of like awesome feeling. And it sticks out to me the most of all like the race experiences I've ever had. Was that one. It was just how energizing and how incredible it was. And there aren't that many races that are out there that like you can feel that much compacted energy. That because there was a home football game that day too, or the day before. It was jam packed with people, and it was just an amazing experience. Yeah,
well, and for whatever reason, that city has really embraced the Ironman because you get out on the bike course and there's parties everywhere. Like there's music or something going on like every hill, and there's a lot of hills. And you know, there were either somebody out there in an SUV with speakers on the roof, or you know, a small party or whatever. They put tents out there. It's just sort of an event, and I think that of course is huge. Is like because you know, they've embraced it and they've sort of made it their own and made it their own event, and it becomes. I'm sure people are like, hey, what are we doing? The Sunday's Ironman. Oh yeah, that's right. We get the tents and you know. It's like a you know, tailgate thing for a lot of people that live out on the bike course or whatever. And then you have Louisville that which we love and we still wish it was a race. And it was our first it was my first experience ever seeing an Ironman, but it was a city that really didn't want it. You know, it felt like from the get-go, either the outskirts of the town or then it became the political thing downtown.
Yeah. Either downtown didn't want it and the outskirts did. The outskirts didn't want it.
Yeah, there was no, I don't know what that was all about, but for whatever reason, I always think it was because it's like, you know, we had always like, well, I wonder if Nashville could ever have an Ironman. But I think usually big cities probably don't want it because it you know, even though it's a big revenue source, they probably have so many revenue sources that are less of a hassle to deal with than a race like that. So, but secondly, one of my favorite or most memorable things is that Louisville we did was like 105 degrees or whatever.
Dude, right there with you.
And you know what I thought? I got done with that race and it was miserable and I couldn't conquer it and it was my worst race, Ironman race ever. But all I could think about when I got done was like, I can't wait to come back and try this again. And then of course,
let's move it to October and make it the perfect temperature. Which you see where that got you.
Just
freaking leave it alone.
So, I mean, in some ways, I kind of like that, too, because it's hard. You know, it's a weird thing. You know, you come in and the whole, like, transition area is blown over and it was raining and it was freezing cold. So I like that. So, you know, either way, it was good, I guess, in that regard. But it wasn't supposed to be a cold race. It was supposed to be a nice race. But I loved the challenge of the heat, and I wanted to figure it out. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, we're not doing that anymore. We'll just move it down to Chattanooga in the...
It's funny how we as triathletes, and I think people are like, yeah, challenge us. I want to do these. Whoa. But I don't want to challenge myself that much, right? Like we have different levels of how, and it has to be within our own control or within our own, you know, wheelhouse of like, but go ahead, challenge me. I can do that distance. It's going to be 85. Well, no. That's too much challenge for today. Like we all have like our level of tolerance for the challenge. And you're like, oh, we have, you know, Ironman Louisville in August and it's too hot. I'm like, let's move it to October. Because they rarely ever sold out on us because it was so insanely hot. They moved it to October, still didn't sell them, and then they had to cancel the swim and all kinds of crap. But like,
remember that when it was that cold race at Louisville, the one where we had like 50 people for dinner, we had that room.
Yeah, they were all cold. Last time that was all freaking cold.
I know, but like,
I hated the city.
That previous or the night before the race or 2 nights before, we had a athlete dinner.
Yeah.
And you gave a little spiel about like what to wear. I just love it because you look at people's eyes, you could see fear, you know. It was sort of like, hey, we're going to face something tomorrow that, you know, we were ready for this Ironman, but it's going to be like on a new level because of rain and cold and things like that. And
most proud I've ever been as a coach.
Oh,
still it had nothing to do with, you know, over the years, like they've had plenty of athletes, you know, have, you know, go to Kona and be All-Americans and win races and PR and be on podiums. But like that race, I was the proudest I've ever been as a coach because everyone finished. And because the day was so in my opinion, was so incredibly hard. I was watching, was so incredibly hard. You gave yourself, it was like the Tahoe. It's like you gave yourself, like I finished that year. Like, you know, I made it. Like, because A lot of people didn't. I mean, I saw people, I saw some of the fastest athletes that I know personally being bussed back within 10 miles of the bike because they were stupid and thought, I can make it. I don't want to put on arm warmers because I'll lose 1.3 watts, and then I won't be as fast. And he came back shivering because he weighed 130 pounds. It's like, but you made smart decisions. You took what the day gave you and you finished and you fought. Like that's how you grow, right? That's things that you remember for the rest of your life. It's not like we don't remember and we don't grow from the easy days. We grow from the obstacles and the challenges. It's like sometimes you just got to take it and roll with the punches. And the athletes that can do that are resilient or want to become resilient, they thrive in those conditions. You're like, this is going to be a slugfest. Sign me up. Yeah, because you can stay standing even if it's not ideal conditions. Right? It's like you see all the time with, in professional sports, like if it's going to be rainy or so, it's like, oh, well, this is going to level the playing field because, so-and-so's are really fast and they do great on turf. And this team is a run heavy defense. And it's like, this is going to be a slugfest. And it totally changes the game because it's no longer. And again, I think this is something that athletes tend to just not think about because we're all worried about how we're perceived and how great we look and how fast we are and what our PRs are. But challenges and obstacles and adverse conditions are ways to level the playing field because it no longer becomes just about fitness on the perfect day. Mm-hmm. It becomes, how fit are you physically? How fit are you mentally? And then how fit are you emotionally? How resilient do you want to be today? What kind of choices are you going to make as an athlete? If you don't make those choices, you get exposed, right? You get exposed for making bad decisions because the more input we have as an athlete, and I mean input is in, what's the weather like? Is it windy? Is it choppy in the water? After wetsuit or non-wetsuit? Is it, I can have crosswinds. What wheel choice do I use? How am I going to, clove the bike? Am I getting off the run? How am I going to pace myself? How am I going to, it's going to be really, really hot. Do I start off really slow? When do I start cooling myself? The more input you have, the more chances you have as an athlete who's smart and resilient and will continue to move forward to catch up, right? And to, to be that Pac-Man of like, gotcha, and start to beat people that you maybe from a fitness standpoint didn't think you could always beat because you're willing to stick around, right? Stick around to the end and be there. In order to be there, you got to make it the whole way and you got to make smart decisions. So look at it that way. Don't look for just the fastest course to be the fastest on. That's great and shows a certain level of fitness, but like we don't do this just for fitness. We do this to find out new things about ourselves, to be challenged, to overcome obstacles, because when we grow as a person, if we always look for the easiest way out of the easiest course, then it won't be memorable because you won't have accomplished and achieved nearly as much as you probably could have had you looked for more opportunities to challenge yourself. Mm-hmm.
And I know you've had this feeling where you feel like your best race wasn't necessarily your fastest race, right?
For sure.
Yeah, so that thing is amazing, right? There's something about the way you feel when you finish a race like that, where that you played it right, you were strong enough and you held out through some tough conditions or whatever it may be and finished. And it wasn't your fastest, but like I think that when we start out training every year, we look at our race and we're like, man, I want to really do this time or whatever and get this much faster. I want to be a mile an hour faster on the bike or whatever. And I just think those are flimsy things to hold on to. You know what I mean? I don't think that we can really build our character or our body that way. I think we just have to really feel out how are we going to, okay, what if it's not the perfect conditions and are we going to be strong enough to deal with it? Like tomorrow, whatever you have to face at work, it's not going to be perfect, but are you building the person that can react and do it and battle through and not be completely wiped out? Are you getting stronger to deal with life every day? And I think there's an analogy there when thinking about racing.
You not always, but for the most part, you always want to be in the gray, you want to be steady Eddie. Like you do want to be unaffected by as many things as possible, right? Like we all know athletes like this. I call them disaster Dannies. Everything's a disaster. Mm-hmm. Broke my goggle strap and I can't swim. I don't think the rest of the week. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to go to the swim. Like it's over. Like, I popped my tire and I'm not going to be able to ride the trainer for 4 days. Like figure it out, right? Find ways to get it done. Like there's always a way to get things done. And if you can't do it in training, then the first adverse thing that happens in a race, it's over. You've been mentally conquered, right? Like we all know. Like I've seen people, I've worked with people that like, oh, I got, I knew it from the beginning. I took 4 strokes and someone kicked me in the goggles and I knew at that point my race was over. No, you decided your race was over. The rest of us kept going, right? Like there's just keep moving. The race didn't stop. Like something bad is going to happen. Think about how many things happen over the course of a day that don't go the way you want them to go. Okay, then add 3,000 people and you trying to perform with nutrition and gears and conditions and, other people. It's like something ain't going to go right? But it's the people and yeah, you might end up having like the perfect day and that perfect race where everything goes perfect, but you're never going to have another one. So you're just going to quit? No, it's about figuring out okay, how am I going to survive and how am I going to make the best out of this opportunity? How can I change, what I want, how I want to execute? How can I still make this good? Or how can I keep going? How can I persevere? How can I still accomplish what I want to accomplish? Because if you're going to if you look at things that way and you think, every little thing is going to get in the way, right? Of what you're going to do. Then every little thing is. Or you can look at it as like, no matter what, I'm going to accomplish my goal at this race, which is to execute and do whatever. Time will be what it will be. If I have something bad that happens, adapt, right? You lose a bottle, go back and get it. Keep going, or figure it out. Like there are just a lot of things, and the sport provides, as we all know, endless opportunities to learn and to have things happen. We're like, all right, got to figure it out. That's the beauty of it. But it's also, I think, the frustrating part is we never have it figured out, but we're always searching.
We are.
You're probably searching for the end of this podcast, and guess what? You found it. 57 minutes in. As always, we appreciate you. We appreciate you tuning in and listening. And if you're racing this weekend, I gotta start saying this more often. Then have some fun. Have some fun for us and for everyone else out there. Enjoy yourself. Smile. And just rip it and enjoy being out there and racing. If you haven't, or it's been a while, head over to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, community, and the occasional coffee review. If you're interested in our club membership, which is ongoing, you can click on the coaching tab, pop down 3, click on it, and you can learn more about that there. Mike heads that up. He's also taking on athletes right now. He's at crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me, I am always available at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. Well, I enjoyed podcast 459. 459.
See you, dude. See you.